Students, we are in final unit, final module, research methods in organizational behavior. And I think this is the things I have incorporated, I have introduced this particular section, this particular paper, because I think lot of issues are there in organizational behavior which is to be searched, which is to be researched. That is why this particular unit, that is so called research methods in organizational behavior. There will be the 5 different units. I am not supposed to teach research methodology here, but what way you can do research in the field of organizational behavior, this thing I am supposed to discuss. That first unit part of research methods in organizational behavior, there is 12 module, that is problem identification and formulation. Students, you have studied, you have seen the entire picture of organizational behavior and you have seen lot of new issues. I just remember few units like as individual dynamics, interpersonal dynamics, organizational dynamics, organizational culture, organizational climate, organizational cynicism, organizational ostracism, organizational withdrawal behavior. So many things are there basically. There is no any perfect solution of this kind of things. And that dimensions what have been discussed, addressed by different people, it is not final. This thing has to be redefined. What way you can redefine? And for that purpose, we need to research. So, my students, I need to clarify this particular part. What way we can do the research in this particular part? Because this type of research purely based on some advanced methods. Advanced methods means we need to identify proper tools of research in this area, we need to identify the advanced topic in this particular area, we need to identify good statistical techniques for analyzing data of this particular area. UG student, PG student, research students everywhere I am telling you, this is much important because it is not the science, the theories develop and it is the universal, everywhere you can find the same theory. But in this particular case, advanced organizational behavior, things are advanced, but it is very dynamic, it is ever changing. Every time you can find new type of thoughts, new type of development, it is possible only through research. So, these particular cases, first you need problem identification and problem solution, problem formulation. Let us see the agenda, what are the things to be discussed this particular part. What is problem identification, key features of problem identification, importance of problem identification in research, characteristics of a good research problem, steps in problem identification, what is problem formulation, key features of problem formulation, importance of problem formulation in research, steps in problem formulation, sources of problem identification and formulation, problem identification versus problem formulation. So many things are there basically, I am trying to give the complete picture, what way you can identify the new topic of research and what way you can frame your problem, fantastic way so that you will gather, you can redefine our different theories or construct of organizational behavior. Let us see what exactly problem identification. Problem identification is nothing, it is initial steps in the research process where the researcher recognize and select a broad area of concern or issue that requires investigation. It involves detecting a gap, inconsistency or ambiguity in existing knowledge, practice or theory. According to Shakaran and Bogi 2016, problem identification involves observing phenomena and determining areas that merit deeper investigation. It is about understanding the problem. Identification is nothing. Let us see what are the areas of organization behavior which needs to upgrade. Try to trace basically what's your personal observation and what you have studied in different books and what is the real practice. So, once you clarify all these things, definitely you will be knowing that theory or that particular practice has to be developed. So, that is the problem identification. It is basically problem identification, it has the great features, it is broad and exploratory in nature, involves scanning literature, observing real world phenomena and responding to practical challenges, often inspired by personal experience, societal issues, theoretical conflicts or stakeholder feedback, identifying that employee turnover is high in healthcare institution. Example, employee turnover in high in healthcare institution, that is basically one of the research problem topic you have identified. It is exploratory in nature, that is the broad brush picture. You just think which area need to be searched, that is some of your personal experience, your societal issues, theoretical conflicts or stakeholder feedback. These very important things. Either your organizational researcher or educational researcher, every cases there is very important. What I have introduced this paper, this particular unit, in this particular advanced organizational behavior, I perceive that what are the theories or what are the model prescribed in organizational behavior, it's not long lasting practices. That has to be modified, that because of environmental picture, that because of individual behavior, group behavior, it is highly dynamic. So, you have to respond, you need to identify, you need to understand. Without research, you may not be understanding what is the reality of different aspect of organizational behavior. Now, see the importance of problem identification in research. Foundation of research direction, identifying a meaningful problem lays in groundwork for the entire research project. It helps in researcher select a topic that in both relevant and feasible, focus on real world relevance. It ensures the research is not done in vacuum, but is linked to practical or theoretical concern that need addressing, guides literature review. It shapes the scope of literature exploration by narrowing down relevant areas of study, prevents redundancy, identifying unique or under research problem, avoids duplication and promotes original contribution. It is the importance of problem identification in research. That means the research is not something like that, you just pick up any kind of problem, resolve it. You need to identify that particular topic, that particular issues which is much dominant and it has to be solved. And it is very necessary to understand this kind of new things which is emerged. So, it has a great importance because you can introduce something new in your organization. Now, see characteristics of a good research problem. Your research problem, whatever you want to search, that must be clear and unambiguous, it is relevant and significant, novel or value adding, feasible and researchable, ethical and practical. You must remember, doing research is another thing, identification of research problem is another thing. If your identification is sound, then definitely you can test the good research output which may be useful for resolving societal problem. Now, see what exactly steps in problem identification. Environmental scanning, initially you just identify the environment, see the literature. Perhaps EG students, you may not have good idea about the literature review, but try to understand literature review is nothing. That means whatever you want to search, you are not the new one. Some other people, phenomenal research already been done, seminal work already been done. You just identify what kind of research, what kind of advancement they have already searched, and that will be the input of your research. Gap analysis, identify what things already studied, what things is left over, defining the context and background. That is something like that, theoretical background of your research, that is very important part. Identify few theories of your research and generalize with your problem, narrowing the problem area. Identify what things you need to search, identify some of different types of variables, either it is dependent variable, independent variable, extraneous variable or some kind of intervening variable. These are all very important things. Independent variable is the initial variable basically which is the trial variable, we can say dependent variable is the causal outcome variable, and the intervening variable which are intervening basically maintaining relationship, and extraneous variable basically which variable you have not studied, which you have not considered. So these are all the things are there basically for identification problem. Once you identify the problem, then you just formulate the problem. Identification problem, that means that you have identified that particular area to be searched. Okay. There are so many sources, whereas we can get the idea, you can define yourself that areas to be searched. What is problem formulation? Problem formulation is the next steps after identification, but the broad issue is that narrowed down into a specific, researchable and well defined problem statement. It includes the development of objectives, hypotheses or research questions. It's very important part. In problem formulation is nothing, you just give the broad picture of your problems, identifying what are the variable are very important to search this particular problem, what are the objectives, what are the hypotheses, and what would be the different types of variables or research questions, something like that. Creswell 2018 explained that problem formulation set the stage for the entire study by stating the problem clearly and providing a rationale for why it needs to be studied. According to Carlinger and Lee 2000, problem formulation is the process of refining and defining a broad area of interest into a specific or researchable problem. Now see more important things of key features of problem formulations that should be very clear. Involves a defining variable, construct or research context, provides direction to the research by framing it within a conceptual and methodological framework. Example, formulating the research problem as what are the key organizational and psychological factors contributing to high employee turnover in hospitals in India. It is very important part when we say about the problem. You just in problem formulation you just specify that what's your area, what's your different types of ingredient of particular researchable area. That is problems means identification objectives, problem means identifying the relevant literatures, problem means creation of hypothesis, crafting hypothesis, problem means here identifying different types of variables. Now see more important part, importance of problem formulation in research, clarifies research objectives, determining methodological choice, ensures feasibility and scope, enhances validity and impact, improves communication. These are all very important part. Students, you can see one by one what is research objectives, clarify what you want to search basically, what's your specific and subsidiary goals of your research. Methodological choice is very important part, ensure feasibility and scope, validity and its impact, all these things under the part of the problem. Then again steps in problems, genesis, literature review, research objectives, identification variables, frame clear problem statement, hypothesis formulation. This is by very chronologically you can see. Genesis is nothing, originates from observed gaps, practical challenges, theoretical ambiguities and or emerging trends needed exploration. Literature review means critically examines previous studies to examine, identify existing knowledge, gaps, contradiction, opportunities for further inquiry. Research objective, clarify, defines the purpose of the study, identification of variables, identifying variables, factors manipulated or categorized to observe the effect. Frame clear problem statement, ensure that the research problem is clear, relevant, feasible, contributes meaningful to academic or practical fields. Hypothesis formulation, process as testable prediction based on theory and previous research, establishing a foundation for empirical investigation. These are all some of things basically, has to be very clear. You just design your problem is very meticulously so that you can start your research. It is not the basically research basically, that is the prerequisites of research, it is a problem formulation. Once you formulate your problem, that is this is the literature, this is objective, this is hypothesis, this is variables, then you can design your research right way. Problem formulation is the elementary secondary part of research basically after identification. Now see sources of problem identification and formulation. From where you can genesis your problem and formulation. First one is the literature review. You can see that different types of research already been done. Some people already search some of good things. You can see that maximum research in the field of organization behavior, I am telling you, that is the replication research. That means some of research already been done by some other people in different culture with certain size of samples, but other people want to know that same results still persist or not. That has to be such. Real world observation is very important things, industrial market gaps, personal experience, policy or social needs is very important things, what societies are demanding basically, this is very important. Now see, in post pandemic era basically what is very important basically HR practice. If we talk that HR practice, what would be the more important topic of research? These very important things, what will be the HR practices, so that you can handle the some of pandemic situation and uncertainty, and HR practices, some HR practices in VUCA era, HR practices in tuna world, this is very important. HR practices is not the organic or linearity phenomena. Inorganic or non-linearity phenomena, what would be the HR practices? This is very important part of understanding, and I think it is called as the policy or social needs. Personal experience is very important. You have studied the entire organization behavior. I am telling you, understanding organizational behavior, exactly you will be understanding people role in organization. You will be understanding people's behavior in organization. These very important things. You have every type of resources, but you are not understanding what kind of interaction, what kind of transactions between the people, in between organizations and structure, interpersonal behavior. Ultimately, you can't engage the people. If you are not engaging the people, definitely employees may not be resilient, employees may not have citizenship behavior, ultimately employees may not contribute more. As a result, you are creating some kind of toxic environment. Ultimately, you can see short term you can improve your productivity, but long term your organizational success may not be granted. So this is some of important things. Now see problem identification versus problem formulation. What is the difference? Problem identification is the broad general issues. Formulation means the narrow and specific issues. Purpose of problem identification is the recognize a gap or concern. Problem formulation, that is define a researchable statement. Output of research identification is the topic or issues, but in the case of problem formulation there is problem statement and stage first steps and the follow identification. That means once you identify the problem, then definitely you can formulate the problem. Now some of questions students, why you can define problem identification, explain its key features with an example. This is very important part. Students discuss the importance of problem identification in the research process. What is the problem formulation? Illustrate with an examples. Explain any 4 key reasons why problem formulation is considered crucial for research. See, it is the part of the research methodology, students. That is what systematic procedure to be followed. But here I am not discussing all part of the research methodology. It is very important topic. But here, being a organizational researcher, I need to clarify basically, I need to clarify what way you can do the organizational research, organizational behavior research. What way you can do the organizational behavior research? Because in organizational behavior research, you are understanding the behavior, you are understanding the emotions, you are understanding the reasoning, logic, employees interaction. So it's very important part. I think it is so important, I am telling you, behavior which is very volatile at different point of time, and being a researcher, I think it's not possible to understanding research methodology you can do the organizational behavior research. But I am just stressing some of important points which is very important being a organizational behavior researcher. That is very peculiarly just identify what things to be searched, because you have the complete knowledge about organizational behavior. Now we are supposed to binding our course, because last preceding 11 modules I have discussed lot of things, basics, medieval and some advanced part of organizational behavior. Now try to understand what are the things we prescribe, which is it really exist, is it needs some kind of improvement, modification, because organizational behavior is purely based on some of identified abstract or theory, and this theory or abstract is likely to be changeable. Be clear all this part very seriously. So unless you clear all these things very scientifically, perhaps you may not be respond all these things very logically. So problem identification, problem identify exactly what you want to do research. Just give example, one of the example of problem identification, and say for example you want to know exactly what is the situation of organizational culture in IT firms. Different IT firms having the different types of organizational culture. Which culture is the best? So craft some kind of problems. Try to identify the solution. So research problem is something like that. If any organization is performing well, that is also the problem of research. If some things are going very bad, it is not practicing well, that is also the problem. The problem may be negative, problem may be positive. So both the things to be searched, so that you can verify your theory, you can align with the theory, and of course if it is possible you can modify the theory. So these are all the things which I prescribe in the problem identification and modification. Students, some of books you need to prefer. You can see some of books of research methodology, but you just see some kind of research methodology books which is for behavioral science, because organizational behavior, it is purely studying the behavior as perspective of employees, behavioral perspective of different stakeholders. Now see, understanding all kind of things, you may have complete knowledge, basically what way you can designing good research problem that can help to give some of new ideas for research. Now see, students, problem identification formulation is the beginning part of any kind of research. You can't skip without understanding the basics, elementary and advanced part of organizational behavior. So it is only possible if you really guess what are the things are lacking in organizational behavior. Like as one more example I can give you, that climate is very volatile. Climate is the people perception about the holistic picture of organization. So it is varying people to people. What is the opinion of the majority of the people? What way you can improve the climate? And that may be the one of the good problem. So why need study about the organizational climate, in organizational culture or climate? What's your objectives? What's your literature? What's your hypothesis? What's your variables? Basically different types of variables may be which can interact with each other. All these things are very important. So beginning part of problem identification and formulation you have studied. So thank you very much for patience hearing and understanding this particular part. Hopefully we will give you some more new informations about what I said, that research methods in organizational behavior. Thank you very much.